everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're going to be making what might be my new favorite crossbody pattern. Today, we're going to be making the Stewart, and this comes to us from Sallie Tomato. So not only are we making this beautiful bag today, this is also the April Sallie Tomato OklaRoots monthly mystery box kit, and there is so much in here. Yes, we are making the Stewart. We're also doing a second pattern. It's called the Make-A-Strap pattern. There's a lot in this video today. There's a lot in this month's kit if you signed up for the April month box. So let's just walk through this adorable bag. This is the Stewart. It is a boxy bag crossbody. There are two sizes to this pattern. This is the large. I also made the small. I'll show you that in a moment. If you have the monthly kit, you have enough material to make either one. So if you're really feeling the small, make the small. You're gonna have a lot of leftover material. This bag has an exterior zipper right here. And you can see for this, the main panel is this beautiful pink fabric. And then we opted for like a really light colored linen. The linen does not go all the way to the bottom. So for those of you that are like, I don't want like a white bottom, it does not go all the way to the bottom. This is a great panel to add embroidery, to add heat transfer vinyl. You can have so much fun with this. Originally, right when I finished this bag, I was like, if I was like in a bridal party, this would be a great bridesmaid bag because it is a crossbody bag. I'll show you the strap. It is a crossbody bag, but it would be perfect for bridesmaids, and then you can put all of their names on it and then like the wedding date. What a special keepsake. So the front of the bag has that front pocket. The back of the bag has that same zip pocket, so it's very useful. On the top of the bag, we have this beautiful accent of cork binding. Once we unzip the bag, we have a nice lining. This is not a bounded bag, so for those of you that are like, please, no more binding. No binding today, no binding. This is a birth bag, so we have this beautiful lining in here. There are no pockets in the lining. However, if you want to add a zipper pocket or you want to add a slip pocket, that is definitely an option. Very easy to do, but per the pattern, there are no lining pockets. So the bag itself is one tutorial we're going to be walking through today. After we make the bag, we're then going to make this adorable little tassel accent. Again, this is all included. Everything here is included in the kit except for this OklaRoots bag tag. That is my own personal tag. That's not in the kit. Everything else you see here, though, is. So we're going to be making this beautiful little tassel as an accent, completely optional. And then another new pattern from Sallie Tomato is the Make-A-Strap pattern. And do you see how stinking cute this is? It has a little accent here. The strap itself is beautiful. I love it. The Make-A-Strap pattern, I haven't counted. There are so many different strap options there. I mean, from buckles to more basic ones. This is probably like a pretty basic, but also zhuzhy one. We have this beautiful accent on our swivel hooks, but for the most part, it is a basic crossbody strap. Very easy. It is adjustable. So you're going to get that as well as the pattern. There's so much. There's so much. So today we're only going to be going through the hybrid adjustable and Make-A-Strap pattern in the tutorial today, but if there's other straps on there you guys want to see, let me know and we can add those straps to other projects. Okay, so this is the large size, and before I got the material for this, I did make the small size, so I wanted to show you a comparison. They are very different sizes. This is a large, this is a small. So I love both of them so much. I will be honest, I think when it comes to which one is easier, the large is easier sometimes because there are some kind of tight areas we have to sew, and because it is so big, it's not as tight. You have a lot more room to sew those bits. The small, though, while it's a little bit challenging on those tighter bits, because it is less material, you're not like, these panels are going to be very big. When you're sewing this at your sewing machine, before we box it all like this, these panels are pretty large, so that could be a little challenging. So honestly, I don't know. I think they both have bits that are harder, that the other one is easier on. Either one, I think you're gonna love it. Just pick a pattern based on which size you like. So I'm gonna show you both of them on, but I just want to show you the small as well. So you can see for the small, I used a lot of prints. I used a fun floral print for the pocket, and then some stripe canvas material for the main part, and then just some regular cork going down as my accent, and then a fun strap. I love putting a fun strap on things. I know that maybe a neutral strap would look good too, but you guys know how much I love color. All right, so let's look at these bags on. We'll start with the large. I am 5 feet 4 inches tall, and I'm a size small or medium depending on the day. So here's the large bag, and I would wear it as a crossbody. That's how I would wear it. So tighten up that strap. I like it a little bit higher. Isn't that cute? What a cute bag, right? And it is large, but it's not huge. It's not like a beach bag, you know? Like, I'm not putting everybody's water bottles in this bag. It's still an everyday size bag. It's just if you carry quite a bit of things, you're gonna be able to fit them all in here. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you the small, and I did wanna mention the small, I did not put the heavy stabilizer in the bottom, so sometimes when you carry this, it can flip upside down, which I know it's like, oh no, I don't want a purse that flips upside down, but let me show you. Once you put stuff in it, it doesn't. So here's just my regular everyday wallet. I'll put my wallet in the small, zip it up, and now you see it does not flip upside down. So once you have your stuff in the bag, it won't flip upside down. I think that's also the point of the heavy stabilizer. If you can put a couple layers of heavy stabilizer, you don't even sew it in, you just tuck it in the bottom before you finish it up. I think that helps keep the weight of the bag on the lower side. So here we go. So here's the small. So you can see, oh my gosh, the small is so cute. I mean, if you're going out and about, especially if you're somebody younger in your life, but if you're just going out and about, you just need your wallet and your phone and that's about it. The small is this might be my everyday bag. This might be my new everyday bag. I love the look of this so much. So I am very excited about this bag. I hope you guys are too. I hope you guys love making it. I would say it is beginner friendly. There's a lot going on. Just because it's beginner friendly doesn't mean it's going to be quick. However, there's nothing wild. No gussets, no curves, no binding. Just a boxed bag, pretty much. This is just a fancy boxy bag. So thank you so much to Sallie Tomato for allowing me to use your patterns on my channel, and thank you as always for letting me part of the monthly subscription box. These boxes are so much fun. I get to help with picking out the patterns, materials, curating little extras. It is such a fun monthly box. So if you're interested in joining in on our monthly box, I'll have a link down below for you to sign up. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. If there are other Sallie Tomato patterns you want me to look at, put them in the comment section. I don't think I need to do a tutorial going over the small. The small and the large, they come together exactly the same. So it's just size materials. But if you zhuzh this up, seriously, embroidered panel, heat transfer vinyl, some glitter on here, maybe an applique design. I mean, I've done applique, I'll have a link down below, but I've done applique before on like notebook covers where we applique a sewing machine. So much here. If you do anything like that, or even if you just make it and you want to show it off, you put it on social media, please make sure you tag me. I'm at OklaRoots. Also make sure you're tagging Sallie Tomato, because this is a really exciting pattern that I think we're gonna see a lot of creative takes on this pattern. I'm very excited about it. All right, guys, let's get started. So the amount of material you're gonna need for this really depends on the size of the bag you're making. In the tutorial today, we're gonna be making the large size, and that's also if you have the monthly kit, you're gonna have the material for the large size. So you're gonna need at least 3/4 a yard of main fabric. Now, we're gonna mix this up a little bit. We have this beautiful like pink kind of, what are these? These are some sort of like flowers. I'm not sure. But we're going to be using this pink fabric as well as this kind of whitish fabric here. This white canvas fabric is what we're going to use for the pockets. And then the pink canvas fabric is what we're going to use for the main body. You'll need about 1/4 yard, or honestly quite a bit less, of a contrast material, which is going to need to be cork or vinyl, something that you can have raw edges on. Since we're not using the cork vinyl for the strap, we just need a very small amount. So you can see we have a couple of long strips and then a little bit for the tassel, zipper tabs, very small amount, very scrappy for the contrast material. I would suggest about 1/2 yard for the lining. We don't have any lining pockets or anything like that today, so if you want to add lining pockets, if you want to add like a zipper lining or a slip lining pocket, you can definitely do that. You're just going to want to make sure you add a little bit more material for that. And then if you want to add woven interfacing to anything, especially if you're using a quilt cotton for the exterior, I do recommend you add a woven interfacing to that. We're using a canvas today in the tutorial, so we don't need to add anything. Lining is up to you. You can add woven interfacing to your lining if you'd like, but it's really not necessary. Lining doesn't take a beating like the outside of the bag does, and it's a lot easier to sew thickness-wise if you don't add the interfacing to the lining. So that's totally up to you. Next, we have some sew-in foam, which I'm really excited about. It's a black sew-in foam that I'm using, which is really cool. You're going to need about 1/2 yard of that. The pattern also calls for heavy stabilizer. I'll be honest, when I made the small version, I completely forgot to add the heavy stabilizer in, and it's fine. So I would say the heavy stabilizer is optional. It gives it nice structure. It's going to keep your bag from having a saggy bottom. So for your heavy stabilizer, you're going to need about 1/8 yard. So for the zippers, we're actually going to have 3 zippers today. You're going to need 2 that are 10 inches long and 1 that is 20 inches long. This is, again, for the large size. You'll have smaller sizes if you're doing the small bag. We'll need 3 zipper pulls to go with that. The main zipper is a single zipper pull. If you want to make it a double zipper pull, which I would suggest, then you'll need 4 zipper pulls. Again, just focusing on the bag right now, we're going to have 2 1/2-inch D-rings, and then we have a tassel as well. The tassel is completely optional, but it's a very cute little accent. The strap we're going to be making separately, so I'm going to go over the strap again once we go to that part of the tutorial, because the strap is actually a separate pattern, because we are doing something kind of cool with this. But you're going to need some webbing. I would suggest at least 50 inches. 50 to 60 inches of webbing is really what you're going to be wanting to use. In the kit, we are using 1.5-inch wide webbing, so you're going to need 2 1.5-inch rectangle rings, a 1.5-inch slider, and then, I know, 3/4-inch swivel hooks, because again, we're going to be doing something fun with the strap. But again, we're going to go over that later in the tutorial. So here's all the other stuff. Always lots and lots of clips. I'm going to be using a Tex 45 weight thread. This is from Wizardry Stitchery, and it is color Fairy Floss. My needle today is a Schmetz Microtex 8012. In the bobbin, I'm using a Gutermann thread from Joann's. And then I have a lighter to help clean up all the loose ends. I have a custom bag tag. This is a metal bag tag for OklaRoots. I have a link down in the description showing you the process I went through to get those made. I have a couple of marking tools, one for marking on cork, vinyl, things like that. It's a silver pen, and then another one that is an air erasing marking tool. And then I have my stiletto, which is like my third hand at the sewing machine. It makes sewing so much easier. And then I have a seam ripper stiletto combo. And then I have a 1-inch by 6-inch ruler, some small screwdrivers to install bits for the tassel, and then a little bit of glue as well. Also mostly for the tassel, but we might use this elsewhere. So let's go through the pattern pieces. First, you're gonna have your 2 main body pattern pieces. These are going to be the major part of the bag. You're gonna need 2 cuts of that. Again, I'm using canvas, so I don't have any interfacing attached to this. And then you're gonna have 4 cuts of material for the pockets. These are exterior pockets, and you can mix this up. 2 of these cuts are gonna be seen on the outside, and then the other cuts can be the lining pockets. So you can use lining material if you'd like. You can use exterior material if you'd like. If you're using quill cotton for these pieces, add the woven interfacing to 2 of these panels, but you don't have to add it to the other 2, because again, the other 2 will act as like a lining, and you just don't need that extra bulk there. Since I'm using canvas, it's all a little bulky, but I think it's gonna be okay. And then I have another small cut here, and this is for the D-ring connectors. From the contrast material, which is my cork, I have 2 long strips. These are essentially binding. These are just a really cool accent. I would actually even say these are optional, but they are really, really cool on the bag. And then we have a cut of material here that's gonna act for our tassel. Again, tassel stuff is totally optional. And then I'm gonna be using some of the little cork pieces here for zipper ends. And then finally, you're gonna have 2 large cuts. These are like main body cuts again of your lining material. You can add woven interfacing if you'd like. I'm not going to. You can use water resistant canvas. That's also a great option. I'm using quill cotton today. And then in the same size as that, you're gonna have your foam cuts. I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but this 505 temporary adhesive is going to be really helpful when you're attaching your foam. Because these are bigger cuts, it is a little bit trickier to keep everything together when you're basting it at the sewing machine. So I like to use the 505 spray. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach the foam to the exterior panels. So just grab one of your foam pieces and then grab one of your exterior panels. Make sure your fabric is right side up with the wrong side against the foam. Line it all up so all the edges match up exactly. And since this is bigger, we can do this quilt style. See, just moving it a little bit, it's all shifting on me a lot. So I'm gonna get it lined up the way I want it, and then I'm gonna lift up half of this. I'm gonna shake up my spray, and then spray on my foam. There we go. And then gently fold this back down and just line it up again. And the nice thing about this is if you're off, you can lift it back up and respray it, re-put it back down. There you go. And this isn't gonna hold it in place forever, but it's gonna hold it in place long enough for us to baste it. So pull that back and then spray the other side, and then just fold this back down gently. This is kind of how we do it with quilts. All right, and if you don't want to use the spray, you could also instead, or in addition to the spray, use some clips to really make sure your corners are stuck in place. I'm gonna probably do that because this big, it does not want to stay in place. So I'm really just working on the corners. All right, so repeat that with your other exterior and foam piece. So now we're gonna take both of these foam exterior combos and we're gonna baste along all 4 edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. once you have that basted in place, we need to top stitch some lines here to help with the structure of the bag. So again, remember, 2 sizes in this pattern, so you need to pay attention to the measurements based on the size you're doing. We're doing the large. So we're gonna wanna measure 2 inches down from the top edge and draw a horizontal line going all the way across. And after you draw that line, remember I'm using an air erasing marker, so this will erase in a few minutes. But after you draw that line, then again from the top, this time we're gonna measure down 10 inches and we're gonna do another horizontal line. Those measurements are different for the small. So once you have those 2 horizontal lines marked on one panel, repeat that with the other exterior panel. Now let's take these 2 panels to the sewing machine and you're gonna top stitch right over both of those horizontal lines on each panel. All right, once you have the exterior panels all prepped, we can set these to the side. So now let's work on our 2 zipper pockets. So make sure you have your 2 zippers. For me, those are gonna be the 2 10-inch zippers. Add your zipper pull if you haven't already. And then before we do anything else, grab a lighter and melt down the ends of your zipper tape. Because zipper tape likes to fray quite a bit and it can be really annoying to work with. There we go. This will just seal it in and so you don't have to struggle with it. All right, so essentially what we're gonna do now is take our little cork zipper tabs and then just fold them over the ends and stitch them in place. Now, how you wanna do this is going to depend on how much work you wanna do. If you feel comfortable, sorry, my zipper was a little off. If you feel comfortable just folding this in half, wrapping it around, clipping it, top stitching it, then do that. If you want to be a little bit more cautious, I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So on the back side of all of your zipper tabs, make a midpoint line that is between the 2 longer edges. So it's parallel to the 2 longer edges going right down the middle. Okay, and you can use some double-sided tape here, or you can use some glue if you'd like, or you can just use your eyeballs. But what you want to do is you want to take your zipper tab and lay it wrong side up, and you're going to have it wrong sides together with the zipper. So zipper right side up, tab wrong side up, lay the zipper right on top. The zipper end should match up with that line you just marked. And what I can do is actually just use a couple clips, just like this. So this is how it looks, wrong side up. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of my zipper. And once again, I'm just using clips to hold it in place, but if you prefer to use tape or glue, go ahead and do that. And do this for the other zipper as well. Okay, and now we're going to take this to the sewing machine. We're going to flip it over looking at the wrong sides of our zipper, and we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance at the inner edge of each of these zipper tabs. All right, so we have them top stitched from the back. Now we're going to flip them over, and you're just going to wrap that tab around so that it covers the end of the zipper, and then just clip it in place. Again, if you want to use tape, you can do that. I just use clips. And if it's not all perfectly lined up, that's fine. This is going to be caught in the seam mostly anyways. You're not going to see all of it. So you'll be okay. So once you have those little ends wrapped over, now we're going to keep it with the zipper right side up, and we're going to top stitch on the right side of the zipper tape, holding down the other end of that tab. Alrighty, and what I like to do now is just clean up all those little thread ends. Even though this will be eaten up in a seam, it's just easier because sometimes these threads do end up poking out in the end and they're kind of a bugger. There we go. Zippers are prepped. So now grab your 4 pocket panels for the exterior, and if you have 2 that are interfaced or 2 that you're going to be using as the lining and 2 that you're going to be using as the exterior, go ahead and separate those now. Mine are all the same. First thing I want to do is find the midpoint on my zipper tape. So I'm just going to fold my zipper tape in half, give it a little pinch, and I can use my marking tool to mark right on the edge of my zipper tape on both sides, the midpoint. Marking midpoints, it just makes everything so much easier. So do this for both your zipper tapes. And now grab the 2 cuts that are going to be the exterior cuts. And on the top edge, if you have a directional print, on the top edge, you're going to mark that same midpoint. So the long edges are the top and bottom. So I'm just going to fold it in half and mark with my marker. And again, do this for both of the exterior pieces of the pocket. So now let's just work on these one at a time. Grab one of your B panels, your exterior main panels, lay it right side up. Grab one of your zippers and lay your zipper right side down. Now I'm gonna have it so that when the zipper is closing, so see when it opens it goes to the right, when it closes it goes to the left. I'm gonna have it so that when the zipper is closing it goes to the left. Again, zipper right side down. So it's right sides together with the exterior piece of our pocket. And we're gonna line them up at the midpoint marks and add a clip. And then we can clip out along the edges. The zipper is not the same length as the top of your pocket, so it should not reach the ends. All right, I'm gonna repeat this with the other pocket. Okay, now I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine and baste along both of these clipped edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Before we move on, if you wanted to add a bag tag to this pocket, now's the time to do it because we're gonna be sewing things together. You're not gonna be able to do it later. So if you wanted to add your bag tag to the pocket, do it now, either a sew-on one or a metal one. I think I will go ahead and add my metal one to this front pocket, just to show you how to do it and give you guys some measurement tips. So this pocket, essentially, the sides will be covered up in a seam. The very bottom is going to be showing, so you have a lot of wiggle room here. You're not going to be boxing the bottom of this pocket. So the center of this panel right now is really going to be the center of the pocket in the end. So I think I am just going to fold this in half. Let's see, how far down do I want it to go? And I'm going to measure 3 inches from the top. And that's where I'm going to mark the midpoint for my tag. Doesn't have to be exact, that's just what I was thinking. There we go. So my tag will go right there, which I think will look nice. So center your tag however you need to. With my washer, I know how to line this up. I know that my prongs are a little off, so I have to do the 1st and the 5th. Prong holders just takes practice. Or if you have a sew-on bag tag, just center it over here, stick it down, and sew it on. Since this material is canvas, and canvas can be a little loosey-goosey to work with, I'm going to cut off some fusible fleece because I just happen to have some fusible fleece scraps. You can honestly use cuts of the cork. If you have some extra little bits of that cork that we're using for the contrast, you could use that. Just with metal bag tags, I like to be a little careful because there's not a lot of pulling on the tag. However, if the tag gets snagged on something when you're using your bag, it can easily rip the material and then it's a mess. So we want to beef it up a bit. So I'm just using that same washer to mark the same slit marks on my fusible fleece, and then I'm using my seam ripper to cut it, and then we'll take the tag, insert the tag into the slits on the front of the bag, flip it over, add some fusible fleece over the prongs, and then add the washer, and then open the prongs, and then grab another piece of anything, cork, fusible fleece, whatever. We just want to protect the back of this as well so these prongs don't rub against the lining material and cause a problem that way. So I'm going to grab my Beacon 3-in-1 glue, and I'm just going to glue all over the back of this. This is a fusible fleece, but it can be kind of a pain in the butt to fuse this on with an iron, so I find glue just works best. There we go. All right, so now I have my bag tag looking pretty good and beefed up. So now grab the lining pieces of your pocket and take your lining piece and lay it right side down over the right side of the exterior piece, sandwiching that zipper in between them, and line them up on the top and bottom edges and clip in place. You want to clip the top and the bottom long edges. Once you have one pocket prepped, go ahead and repeat that with the other pocket. So now take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew along the top and bottom edges of each of these pockets at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end on both top and bottom. Once you have those sewn, turn your pocket right side out by just pulling one short end through the other short end. And if you're using canvas like I am, be gentle because canvas starts to fray. You can always trim it down if it's fraying too much and clean it up. And if you really are bothered by it, you can use some fray check and just dip the edges in fray check. Okay, now if you'd like, you can grab an iron and press this. I think I will, actually. So I like to start by flattening out and ironing the seam by the zipper. So I just kind of tug along that zipper, also tug along the bottom. Look at the front and the back. Sometimes the back likes to roll up higher than it's supposed to. And then once I have it nice and flat by the zipper, I'm just going to put my hand in here and kind of press down and roll out the bottom edge. And try to flatten that out as well with the iron. You can see I'm always just working in like little sections. I don't really ever just plop it down and iron all of it at once. Bag making takes patience sometimes, which I'm still learning. And as it's cooling off after I iron it, I like to just rub it with my hands. I feel like when you do that, it stays the way you want it better. All right, so there's one. I'm gonna repeat that with the other pocket. Okay, once you have these pressed, now we're gonna go to the sewing machine. We're gonna top stitch just the top edge, right by the zipper here. Just top stitch underneath the zipper at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do this for both your pockets. Oh boy, aren't these pretty? I think these pockets are just really, really lovely, especially for April. What a nice, fun pocket. All right, so let's do this one at a time. Grab one of your pockets and then grab one of your exterior main panels and lay your exterior main panel right side up. Make sure you check which of these is the top and the bottom. So remember the one that's 2 inches top stitching from the top, that's the top. So this is the top. Okay, so I just measured 3 3/4 of an inch down from the top edge of my main panel. Ignore this other line here because I measured that incorrectly. Make sure when you're following the pattern, you always look at the size you're working on. I accidentally looked at the smaller size, mismarked it. But I want to measure 3 3/4 of an inch down from the top edge and then fold my panel in half with the exterior side out so I can find the midpoint of the center of this panel on that marked line. So once you have the short edges together, just pinch right in the middle and mark your midpoint. There we go. So now I have my horizontal line and the midpoint on that horizontal line. Next, we're going to grab our adorable little pocket and make sure you have the midpoint on the zipper already marked on the front and the back. Lay it right side up just so you can kind of get a look at how cute it's going to be. And then flip your panel over so that the bottom edge of your zipper lines up with that line you just drew and match up your midpoint mark with the midpoint mark on your panel. You can grab some tape if you'd like. Sometimes tape doesn't stick as well as we'd like. Make sure you move your zipper pull out of the way. There we go. We just want to get this zipper lined up with that line and centered. That's the goal here. Now we're going to sew right over the bottom edge of the zipper here at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, you have it sewn on. So now you're going to flip your pocket down. If the bottom edge meets up with the top stitch line, that's okay, but don't yank it to do it. It's gonna go where it's gonna go. So just try to use that top stitching line right here to keep the bottom edge parallel with it. It doesn't have to touch it. Don't let it go past it. It definitely should not go past that top stitching line. But on my other bag, it was a little bit higher. On this one, it's closer to it, so don't worry about it. Just try to keep it parallel to that line. And if you're like, whoa, wait a minute, we have raw edges here, what are we gonna do? Don't do what I did and email the designer and say, hey, did you make a mistake? Because she did not. I'm sorry, Jessica. I emailed the designer and I was like, is this wrong? And she was like, no, just keep doing the pattern. It all comes together. And I was like, oh, okay. So these should be raw edges on the side here. So you can see I'm just once again using the tape to try to keep it all squared up as best as possible. Okay, so now let's top stitch on the raw side edges and the bottom edge, all at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alrighty, how pretty is that? I love these colors. You can see it just pokes in like that. There we go. So go ahead and repeat this with the back panel in the other pocket. So now grab your front main panel and lay that right side up, and then grab your main longer zipper. And we're going to make it so that when the zipper is closing, it goes towards the left. So just like the pocket on the front, both close towards the left. Then we're going to take our zipper tape and lay it right side down so it's right sides together with the main panel, and line it up with this top edge and clip together. Once you have this zipper clipped in place, let's baste it down at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that that's basted, grab one of your lining panels and lay your lining panel right side down on top. So it's right sides together with the main panel. And we're lining it up with the top edge here where the zipper is. And then just grab some clips and clip these right sides together. Now let's sew along that top clipped edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So once these are sewn together, lift the lining up and press the seam towards the exterior. So I'm gonna be pressing it with my fingers. The lining is not gonna go back, okay? So the seam goes down. See in the back here, the seam is gonna go down towards the exterior panel, but the lining is not going back like that. The lining is going to stay up. We're not top stitching the lining here. So with the seam pressed behind the main exterior panel and the lining over here out of the way, we're going to baste down at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You should be able to catch that. That's the point of this. The point of this is to catch that seam on the back and keep it against the exterior panel and the lining out of the way. So now that we have that basted down, what we want to do is take our cute little binding strip here, and we're pretty much just going to cover the top edge of that seam with the binding strip. How close you want it to the zipper is up to you. You can line it up so it's exactly, you know, the long edge is right along the folded top edge here of the fabric. Totally up to you. And honestly, I do feel like this is optional. However, it is a beautiful, beautiful accent. So I would not skip it if I were you. I would have a lot of fun with this right here. You can make it very classy and neutral, kind of what we're doing here, or you can make it a really bright color. You can have so much fun with this. You could use ribbon here if you'd like. So if you have a nice skinny ribbon, you could use ribbon here. That would be amazing. So I have my tape on here and I'm just going to tape this. And I'm having it so it just very slightly overhangs the fold of the fabric because I don't want it too close to the zipper. All right, once you have it where you want it, top stitch along both long edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Wowee, this is looking so pretty. I'm so excited. Okay, now you're going to take your lining and you're going to just press it down. If you want to press it with an iron, that's a good idea. Go ahead and press it, get it nice and crisp. And now we're going to repeat this with the other side. I am going to walk you through it because sometimes it can get a little confusing. So take your back panel and lay it right side up. Take your front panel with the zipper and lay it right side down, lining up the zipper with the top edge of the back panel. And then use your clips to clip the zipper in place. All right, once that's clipped, go ahead and baste down the zipper at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have that basted, lay it so that the panel is lining side up that you've already attached and zipper is wrong side up, and then grab your remaining lining panel and lay it right side down so that it's right side to the back side of the zipper and clip in place. So now let's go sew along this clipped edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you have these sewn together, once again, you want to move the lining out of the way. And you want that seam that you just sewed to go behind the exterior main panel. So take both your main panels and flip them open like this. And then you have the seam back here. Roll that seam so it's under the main panel that we just sewed into place. The other exterior panel, the other lining panel, and the lining panel you just sewed, all of that should be over here to the left, out of the way. The only thing we want to do now is fold that seam behind the main panel and stitch it down. So you can stitch it down at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance or a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Just baste it down in place, making sure that seam is being held against the main panel. All right, once you have that basted in place, again, make sure the left side has the other exterior and both lining panels. The right side is the exterior we're working on. Grab your remaining little accent binding piece and add some tape or glue to the back of it. And just like we did before, you can have it just cover or meet up with that top folded edge of the seam, just getting it close to the zipper. There you go. And once you have it where you like it, go ahead and top stitch along both of the long edges of your binding at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, take your exterior panel pieces and fold them right sides together, and take your lining panel pieces and fold them right sides together. And starting with the exterior, we're going to line up these bottom edges. I always start with the corners and then just clip along this matched up bottom edge. And now let's sew along this bottom edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, so now you want to press this seam open. It's a little hard to just press it with an iron because of that foam. I am going to top stitch the seam open. So I'm going to just finger press it first, just to make it a little bit easier at the machine. So finger pressing the seam open. And now find your zipper and the side that opens when the zipper opens. So when I open my zipper, this is the side that opens. I'm gonna open it like that. And then I'm going to put a clip on the opposite end of my zipper over here so I don't lose my zipper pull while I'm doing this. And what I want to do is just open up that zipper, because I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to press open that bottom seam with my fingers, and I'm going to carefully top stitch right on each side of the seam so that I'm top stitching down the seam on the back to get it nice and flat. That's the goal here, is just to get the bottom of the bag really flat. And you'll see as we do this, we have to kind of rotate this under the machine without losing our zipper pull. If you're really comfortable taking the zipper pull on and off, then just take the zipper pull off and lay it all flat and top stitch the bottom. Otherwise, put something on the end over here to keep it from falling off, and you're just gonna have to kind of rotate it up as you're sewing. Alrighty, so you can see we have it nice and top stitched. I would say that's actually easier to do on the larger size than it is on the smaller size. The larger size, you have a lot more wiggle room here, versus the smaller size where it's a little bit tighter. So once again, exteriors are on this side, and let's take our 2 lining panels and lay them right sides together. Line up those bottom raw edges and clip together. And before we sew this, mark yourself a 5-inch at least opening. So I'm just gonna measure roughly 5 inches right along the middle of my lining. And now I'm going to start on one end, and I'm going to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance until I get to that first mark, and then I'm going to lift up my needle, jump over the opening here, and then put my needle back down in the second mark and continue sewing at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We just want to leave a nice opening here so we can turn the bag out later. Honestly, I'm thinking I'm going to do a 6-inch. I think I'll do 6-inch opening because this is a big bag, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Alrighty, you've got this bag body ready to go. Let's set it to the side for just a moment. So now let's work on the strap connector. So take your strap connector cut, and on the back, mark a midpoint line going from short end to short end. So it's a midpoint line going between the 2 long edges. And then just fold the long edges back, wrong sides together, so that the long edge meets that midpoint line, and press it down. Do this with the other side as well. And then once you have them pressed to the back, fold it in half one more time, so that there are no raw edges anywhere on the front, back sides, only on these short sides right here. Here we go. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch along the double fold and the single fold long edges of our strap tab. Once you have that top stitched, just fold it in half, short edges together, and grab some scissors and cut it. So now you have 2 equal sizes. Grab your little 1/2 inch D-rings, and you're going to thread this around the straight part of the D-ring. Grab a clip to hold it in place. Do this for both of them. All right, now we can just quickly baste right along these short edges so that we don't have to worry about it coming undone when we put it in the bag. Okay, so now grab your main bag, and here's what you want to do. You want to fold your bag so the bottom of the main panel comes up to meet your zipper tape, okay? The bottom of your main panel, that's your midpoint. Spread open the lining as well. There we go. So we have that, and then do this for both sides of your exterior first. If you have an open zipper like I do, just pull it together to meet, and just use clips to help hold it all in place. So I'm just going to line up my zipper tape with that midpoint mark on the bottom. Grab some clips, hold it together, make sure all edges are lined up. There we go. Right now we're just focused on the center points, okay? We're going to work more with this in a little bit, but right now what I'm doing is I'm just opening up the lining like this. There we go. And then I'm going to take the seam on the bottom of my lining and line that up with that zipper as well. So we have like a little sandwich here where the bottom of our lining and the bottom of the exterior have this zipper sandwiched right between it. So I'm going to do that. Do this with the other side of my lining as well. I like to press open the seam with my fingers. If you want to press open the seam with an iron, it'll stay a lot better. I'm just going to use my fingers. All right, there we go. So we have our little sandwich here. So now take one of your D-rings and insert it so that the D-ring part is going in towards the bag. And it needs to go between the exterior panel and the zipper. So in like this between the exterior panel and the zipper. Make sure the tab is centered. I like to center it on the zipper, but because it'll just kind of tuck in right between the seams that are surrounding the zipper. Okay, I know you can have quite a few layers here, so just make sure you keep an eye on everything and make sure everything is where it needs to be. Okay, so just triple check that you got everything in there, everything is clipped together. Make sure that your little D-ring tab is clipped so it doesn't fall. Now repeat this with the other side, inserting the D-ring tab again into the center between the exterior and the zipper, and I just nudge it right in the zipper. All right, so for these connectors only, we're gonna sew through all the layers. So make sure you know where your connector is. I think it's easier to see from this side. So through this connector, this bit right here, so pretty much just like this 1/2 inch. You can, maybe if that's easier, just this 1/2 inch right here where the seam is open on the back of the exterior. We're going to sew at a 3/8 inch seam allowance, just backstitch really well, but only over this chunk right here, making sure that you are sewing the connector in place. Do this for the other side as well. We're not sewing the whole edge, just this little bit right here. All right, so let's work on the main fabric side first. So that's the exterior. So let's fold this over, lift up the lining out of the way, and fold down the exterior so that it's right sides together and the raw edges are lined up. And let's just clip along these raw edges on the side over here. You're going to go above the zipper and below the zipper. So remember, at the zipper, the lining and everything is all sewn together. But above and below it, it's not. So we're going to do that. And if you need to, grab a clip and clip the lining out of the way so you're not tempted to sew it in. Repeat this on the other side. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. But we're going to sew from this fold right here all the way down to meet where we started stitching the tab in place. So right here where everything is stitched together. So sew from the fold to there, back stitch at the beginning and the end, then lift up your needle, go around the area we've already sewn in the middle here, go back to this side and sew from the zipper area down to the other fold at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So we're just sewing this side at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. We're just not sewing this bit in the middle that we've already sewed. Again, keep your lining out of the way. We're not sewing the lining at all. We were only sewing the exterior panel. So do this for both sides. Alrighty, and if you haven't already, make sure your zipper is mostly open. It doesn't need to be all the way open, just mostly open. So we have the exterior side sewn, and now we're going to repeat that with the lining side. So just like we did before, line up the edges of your lining panels, and then clip along just the lining, not the exterior. So once again, we're going to go and we're going to sew along the edge, this time of the lining, until we get to the spot we've already sewn. This is a little bit trickier because this is so bulky, the exterior is so bulky. Just make sure you're moving it out of the way and you just get as close as possible. You'll see what I'm sewing. I usually like to sew towards the center, so I'll sew from the top fold edge here over to the center, and then I'll flip this over, move the back panel out of the way, and then try again to sew towards the center. I just find that's a little bit easier. But sometimes it is really hard to get the needle touching the stitches. Just get it as close as possible. Do this for both sides. All right, so now let's box these corners. So measuring from the stitch line of the seam, so the stitch line right here, and then the bottom folded edge, we're going to mark 3.5-inch squares. Okay, so you can see I marked those on the exterior. I'm going to do the exterior and the lining individually. So once I have that 3.5-inch square marked, I'm just going to grab my scissors and cut it out. And I'm going to do this for all 4 corners. All right, so you can see we have the exterior cut. Now we're going to repeat that with the lining. Just once again trying to flatten it out. And then cut out your 3.5-inch squares if you're doing the large size. It's a different size if you're doing the small. All right, so once you have it all cut, now it's time to box these corners. So you're just going to take the 2 corners of the exterior and pull them apart. Make sure that pocket, if you had to cut into the stitches a little bit, make sure you keep it lined up. You don't want to lose it. You might want to mark the midpoint actually. So I'm going to just pinch this here and I want to mark this midpoint on the bottom. So I'm going to grab my marking tool. That'll make it easier to line this up. I'm going to mark there, and I'm going to mark the bottom of all the folds for the lining and the exterior. All right, so now taking one of these corners, pull the corners opposite one another and bring the side seam up to meet that midpoint mark. And again, if your pocket got detached from the main panel, just do your best to grab clips and keep it together because we do want to sew the sides of these pockets into this boxed seam. Just match up the seam with the midpoint and then straighten out this edge. Again, just being really careful. There's a lot of layers here and they all need to be caught. All right, so I'm just going to work on the exterior to start with. So I did one edge. I'm going to continue doing this for the other 4 corners. Just carefully making sure I catch everything. All right, once you have it all clipped, we're going to sew along each of these clipped corners at a 1/2-inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have these sides sewn, you can go ahead and trim that seam allowance in half to reduce the bulk. So we're just trimming it down to like a 1/4-inch seam allowance now. Do this for all of the exterior sewn sides. Again, always moving the lining out of the way. We're not doing that one just yet. All right, so once you have the exterior side sewn, now we're just gonna repeat that with the lining sides. The lining, it's a little bit trickier because now it's just, you got more stuff in the way. But just like we did before, open up those corners so the cut corners go away from each other, and then your midpoint mark, if it's still there, is gonna line up with the seam. And then I like to clip it together in the middle first and then clip out towards the edges. All right, once you have all 4 of your lining corners clipped, we're gonna sew along these edges, this time at a 5/8" seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end on each one of them. Once you have those lining panels sewn, let's once again trim that seam allowance in half. I know this one's a little bit trickier to do because the bag is fighting you. You don't have to trim the seam allowance down if it's gonna cause any problems. Alrighty, hardest parts are done. Let's just turn this right side out now through that hole. Be gentle. Once you have it turned out, poke out those corners. Don't forget to poke out the corners on the top as well. This is a little cubic shape. Well, that is adorable, isn't it? And so this top stitching that you did on the exterior, it helps it keep its structure so that it has a nice boxed shape. So now if you are using the heavy stabilizer, now's the time to add it. I'm just adding 1 piece, so I'm going to insert it through the hole in the lining, and I'm just going to push it down against the bottom of the bag. And it should be the exact size of this flat bottom here. This just prevents the bag from being too droopy. If you want to use 2 pieces of stabilizer, you can use 2 pieces. I'm just going to use 1. This is nice and firm. I think that'll be good. And honestly, if you wanted to add some purse feet, right now you could do that. You could insert the purse feet through the exterior of the bag and also through the stabilizer. That would be cool. Okay, so we have everything in there. Now let's close up the lining. So pull the lining up. And then what I like to do is just kind of like tug along the sides. You can put your finger in there and the raw edges will just fold in on themselves. And just make sure you have a nice folded clean edge where the opening is. And add some clips to hold it closed. And now let's top stitch along this clipped opening at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, let's just tuck in that lining now. And then close up your bag. Make sure your D-rings are all good on the side. Oh yeah, this looks cute. This looks cute. Okay, so now we just have to make a strap and a tassel. So let's start with the tassel first, and then we'll do the fun strap. All right, so here's what I'll be using for the tassel. I have my tassel cut. I have my tassel hardware. I've got some E6000 glue. You could also use the Fabric Tack glue or the Beacon 3-in-1 glue if you'd like. I like E6000 for this. A small ruler and some screwdrivers. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the shorter edge of my tassel cork and I'm going to measure 1/2 of an inch down and mark a line, just like that. And then you can mark a bunch of 1/4 inch lines going perpendicular to that line, so up from the other edge to meet that line, or you can just kind of eyeball it, use some scissors, and just cut some skinny strips going from the other short edge up to meet that 1/2 inch line you marked. And do this for the full piece. All right, and then you might want to just do a quick fit test. So just roll along the top edge that's not cut. Roll it up and then just insert it into your tassel cap. Make sure it fits in there. If it's too thick, you can't get it in there, just trim off some of the fringes. Look how cute that is. So now all we have to do is add some glue. So I'm going to unroll this, take my E6000 glue, add a little bit of glue to the back of my tassel. Again, only in that uncut part, not on any of the fringe. There we go. And then I'm going to roll it up again with the glue this time, all the way. And then once I have that done, I'm also going to add some glue to the very top of my cork tassel here. And then I'm going to insert this whole unit into the cap, just like that. So now I'm going to grab my stiletto, and I'm just going to poke a hole through the cork where that hole is in my tassel cap, because that's where I need the screw to go. And just kind of pre-poking a hole makes it a lot easier to screw this in. So now grab one of your small screwdrivers and the screw and just screw this in. And it's going to go through all the layers of cork and it's going to go through the tassel cap. And I like to leave the tassel like this. I like the look of this rose gold here, but if you wanted, you could cut another piece of your cork. And let's see, just cut it like 3/8 of an inch high and then about 2 inches long, and you can glue a piece of cork around the top of this tassel right here, and then it gives it just like a really finished, polished look. But I personally like the tassel just like this with lots of the rose gold hardware showing. All right, now with the make a strap pattern, there are so many strap options there. We're gonna be making the hybrid adjustable strap one, which is where we have swivel hooks. It is an adjustable strap, but we still have these fun little ends for the strap as well. It's a really beautiful look. So for that, we're going to need 2 of our adjustable strap connector pieces. This is pattern piece D. If you're using the kit, this is for pattern piece D. This is like the medium size hybrid strap connector. We're going to have 2 small cuts here of cork. These are totally optional, but they're just going to cover the edges so we don't have to double fold it. We can just single fold the edges. I'll show you how to do that. We have a 1.5 inch slider, 2 1.5 inch rectangle rings, and then 2 3/4 inch swivel hooks. And then I have some webbing here. I suggest your webbing be anywhere between 50 to 60 inches long. So first let's prep the webbing. For the webbing, I'm going to grab a lighter and just melt down the edges because I don't want any of this fraying to peek out at any point. And then I'm going to grab one of these little strap ends and I'm just going to wrap it around the end of my webbing. So I'm just looking to make sure that they meet up. The end of the webbing is going right in the center of that strap end. Then I'm just going to use some clips to clip it in place. Do this for both ends of your webbing. And now I'm going to go top stitch closer to the raw edge over here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both ends. All right, once you have this top stitched on, go ahead and just melt down any little tails you have of thread. There we go. And now let's add a little bit of decoration to these little strap ends here. Let's just top stitch along all the edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're not sewing anything together, we're just top stitching around the edges. Okay, let's put this strap together. So grab your strap and grab your swivel hook. And then insert your strap up from the bottom, over the middle bar of your swivel, and back down around. Now, if you left this edge raw, you're going to want to double fold this over to tuck it in. However, if you covered it like we did, you can leave it just like this because it looks nice. You're going to have it come over 1 1/4 inches. So let's see. It's going to be 1 1/4 inches from the top. It's a little long. All right, so I'm just going to measure down from the bar, about 1 1/4 inch. It does not have to be precise. If you want to use rivets here, highly recommend putting 2 rivets right here. However, I'm going to sew it because that's what we do. We sew it sometimes. So what I'm going to do is just sew a little rectangle right here where the fold over is, just about 1/8 of an inch from the edges and as close as I can get to the bar. A zipper foot is going to probably be easiest at this point. All right, next, take your strap, straighten it out, grab one of your rectangle rings and add a rectangle ring over your strap. And then with your strap wrong side up, so the folded over bit is facing up and your strap is nice and straight, fold your strap in half so the edge that doesn't have anything comes up to the back of the slider. Have it go up through the edge that has the fold over and then over that middle bar and then pull it out. So you should have something like this now. Your raw edge over here, your slider in the middle, and then a rectangle ring on the other side. And then take your remaining rectangle ring and you're going to wrap the end of your strap around that rectangle ring so that the end goes down towards the back where the slider is. So see like this is the right side. Then I flip it over, I'll have my end over here folded over. Once again, have it folded over about 1 1/4 inches. And then just like I did with the adjustable slider, I'm going to make a little rectangle here and just stitch it down. Once again, if you have rivets, 2 rivets right here are going to be perfect. Okay, so here you go. So this is pretty much just like a regular adjustable strap, except instead of where we would normally have our swivel hooks, we have rectangle rings. Because now we're going to attach our swivel hooks and these other pieces to those rectangle rings. So grab one of your accents and thread your swivel hook over it so that it comes to the narrow part of the accent. And let's start with this rectangle ring over here. So take your strap and flip it so that it's wrong side up. So the back of the slider, the back of our little strap end over here. And then with your accent and your swivel already threaded on, to keep your accent wrong side up and wrap it around that rectangle ring. And then fold up the shorter bit of the accent, wrong sides together, and you'll see there are curves and the shape should line up like it's supposed to. So I fold it up like that and then I fold the wider edge down. Now the bar needs to come up right against the fold of the wider edge. So this gets a little tricky. If you have a rivet press and rivets, I highly recommend just putting 2 rivets right here and being done with it. But I'm going to sew it. So get everything lined up as well as you can and then grab some clips and hold it in place. And now I'm going to top stitch as close as I can to the bar right here. Again, using a zipper foot is going to be easiest. And then I'm just going to go over the top stitching that's already in place around this top fold over bit right here. And there we go. Now we have this cute little accent. It's not the best top stitching I've ever done, but it doesn't look too bad. And my bobbin thread is what you see on the right side of it. And it matches really nicely to my cord. So it's kind of invisible. So now I'm going to repeat that with the other one. So I'll walk you through it because it is quick. Once again, thread the swivel hook on. Make sure the strap is wrong side up. Take the tab wrong side up. Insert the larger end over the rectangle ring. Oopsie-daisy. Make sure you put your swivel hook on the right way. The swivel should be on the right side of the material. And then fold the shorter end up and match it up with the angles on the tab and then fold over the top one, making sure that the rectangle ring bar is right along the fold of the wider part of our accent tab. Use the clip to keep it in place. And then once again, we're just gonna top stitch close to the bar and then following the top stitching that's already around the little fold over bit. All right, so here we go. We have our bag, we have our tassel, we have our strap. I feel like we have a lot this month because we've got all this and you have 2 patterns that go with this. So this is a good month. So let's just attach our strap. I know the strap is really colorful. None of you should be surprised that I picked a really colorful strap. So there's our strap. How cute is that? Oh, I love that. And then we have our tassel, which we can attach anywhere. I think I'm gonna attach it to my D-ring over here, where my strap is attached. How cute is that? Oh, I love this. And what's really nice about this big panel here is that if you want to do embroidery designs, you can do that. If you want to do heat transfer vinyl, if you're making this for like a group of people, maybe a bunch of bridesmaids, you can put everybody's name on this bag. There's so much you can do. So much you can do. I hope you guys love this bag. Alrighty. What did you think? Tell me what you think about the pattern. Tell me what you think about the strap. I love the strap. We get asked about straps like this all the time. Having a way, I mean, a crossbody strap is just fun. Look at the material. Like, this is a fun strap. However, just that little bit of kind of a neutral bling, it really steps it up, you know? It is a beautiful, beautiful strap. And especially like a bag like this, is you can make a whole bunch of different straps and just change them out. I mean, make yourself a neutral strap to go with this. Make yourself a fun, colorful strap to go with this. And you can completely change up the bag. You can also have some fun with the tassel. You can put some sparkly heat transfer vinyl on the back of the cork so it's like super blingy, or keep it neutral. There's just so much you can do with this. And I love that because it really gives you the opportunity to be wildly creative or follow the pattern and you still end up with a beautiful, stunning bag. You know what I mean? So I hope you love making the Stewart as much as I do. This is gonna be another go-to pattern for me for sure. If I had anybody in my life that I'm like, I really wanna make them a good, useful, everyday bag, I would be playing with this. I want to play with vinyl. I want to try some water-resistant canvas on this. Like, there's so much I want to do with this pattern. Thank you again to Sallie Tomato for allowing me to be part of this box and use your patterns on my tutorials. I hope you guys are having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.